Monday, April the 12th, 2020, in the year of our Lord. We're going to have a nice evening. It's spring, hallelujah, right? So we'll have a call to order. So we'll begin this evening. We always begin with prayer. So let me have a word of prayer, and we'll have a pledge of allegiance. Father, just come before you tonight. We thank you for spring. We thank you for a day. It's been a gift from your hand. We'll never see this day again, this April the 12th. Father, it has been a joy. Father, many have died today, and many have been born. As we see the miracle of birth, and we see the tears of death. So, Father, we just pray. The Word says you will never leave us nor forsake us. We claim that. We pray, Father, for our city. We just thank you for Scottsburg. We thank you, Father, for the people in it. We thank you for those, Father, that just make this community, Scott County, what it is, Father. Just a hometown that we can look at each other, help each other, and trust in each other, and encourage each other, Father. And we just thank you for this time that we have. We pray for your blessing upon each of these council members, Father, and each of these elected officials, Father. The clerk treasurer and the boards that we have, the employees that we have, Father, they've been brought here to these positions at this time. And so we thank you for this. We just pray for your help, your protection, your encouragement, your strength. Give us wisdom and discernment. And all these things we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Now the President pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is the roll call. You're going to see our agenda up on the north wall here. So this will be by the clerk treasurer, Jan Hart.
Mayor Amy.
Here.
Chris Albertson.
Here.
Bill Hoagland.
Here.
Rick Mann.
Here.
Christian Evans.
Here.
Chuck Rose.
Here.
We're all in attendance. Welcome. Welcome. The first thing we have then is the approval of the March 22nd, 2021 Common Council minutes. We'll accept the motion to accept these as presented, or if you have additions, subtractions, or changes, please let us know. We have a motion to accept the minutes as presented, please.
Motion.
Chuck Rose makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chris Albertson seconds. Any questions, comments, concerns about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Unanimous. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is a time for public comment. If you are here and would like to speak, the City of Scottsburg, the Scottsburg City Council will accept public comments. Individuals wishing to address the City Council will be asked to come forward and state your name. For the record, each person will have 5 minutes to voice their opinion. Remarks should focus on issues and not be used to target city employees or elected officials. Who do we have here this evening who would like to speak? Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice. We're going forward. So the next thing we have is new business. Item 1 on new business is the addendum 3 to the Rural Business Enterprise Grant Addendum number 2 by Ms. Jill Sayes.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I feel like I get up here and talk about this each time. So, and for those of you that may not recall, the city has three distinct revolving loan funds. 2 that are EDA related, and 1 that was originally formed using a combination of USDA Rural Business Enterprise Grant loans, or money. It was a grant to the city to provide loans to businesses, and then some other old I've been before you twice before, one to enter into, to do plans for the EDA CARES Act, which was the new grant that was awarded last summer. And then to offer an addendum to the existing RLF plan, which allowed the same flexibilities as the EDA CARES Act, where you looked at the interest rate and the letters of credit or credit not available, a number of flexibilities. But we never talked about the other revolving loan fund. The blessing that the city of Scottsburg has right now is you have at least 3 businesses that have requested loan funds. Right now you have funds to give them if the loan board and the council decide to do so. But some of that needs to come out of the non-EDA revolving loan fund, which is your most flexible pot of money. When I looked at that plan, we had modified it, and addendum number 2 of that plan was a modification to make it more consistent with the other 2, so that the loan board would have, wouldn't be confused and everyone else would kind of be looking at everything along the same lines. So with that said, part of the addendum I'm proposing to you tonight, which is addendum number 3, is to omit the section that states the minimum interest rate that may be charged is 4 percentage points below the current money center bank prime, as quoted in the Wall Street Journal, but no less than 4%, or the maximum interest rate allowed under state law, whichever is lower. Those are the same words that were in your original EDA revolving loan fund plan. That EDA has allowed you to have those flexibilities. The council said 2% would be a rate that would be at least advised to be used. And so with the omission of that, then it gives the loan board and the council then the authority to set that rate. And the language within the original plan says somewhere between 3 to 5%, but it's up to the loan board and then ultimately the council, because the council approves it. So I'm presenting that long-winded version, I'm presenting this addendum to take out that 4% or minimum interest rate to make it more consistent with what you have.
So it basically just brings it in line with the
It does.
the changes that we made to the other loan funds,
That's correct.
and it increases the flexibility.
It increases the flexibility, and that is something, flexibilities are certainly something that all the businesses are aware of, because they do, when they contact me, mention those flexibilities. So I think it would be good to omit that statement from this, because it's not required that that be enforced.
Well, what's the verbiage we need? We need to have a motion and
Yes, please, if someone would make a motion
amend.
to amend this, to adopt this amendment number 3, which would omit that minimum interest rate.
Do I have a motion to go forward with this amendment?
I'll make a motion to adopt it.
McMahon makes the motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Joe Owens seconds. Is there questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Something to report that as of today, and hopefully knock on wood, you had a request for almost $1 million in loan funds for businesses that want to expand. So I think that's good.
That's great. Thank you very much. $1
Thank
million.
you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And multicolors going forward. Our electric superintendent has changed some lines there for these folks, so thank you. Next is first reading of ordinance 21-5, an ordinance to adopt personnel policies handbook of the city of Scottsburg, the first reading. So, have you all had a chance to read through this 589-page handbook?
Very enlightening.
And you have about the handbook? We have the authors and curators of this handbook here amongst us tonight.
And by statute, this does have to be read out loud.
The entire book. We're gonna have our city council attorney again.
I think that's council president.
Council president or his designee.
So it is a change. It's actually just a mere 88 pages. 89 pages. You know, it's a number for new beginnings, so we got a new beginning. So did you see anything that would raise a red flag to you that you have a question about you would like to pose to the authors?
I have just a couple of things, and nothing very major. First of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work that's going into this, because I've been on the other end of handbooks and things like that. And I know from where we started, what we have here, there's been a lot of time and effort invested in it. I guess probably the main issue I have, and you have to understand, I'm old school on this, but section 5.21, working remotely, and that seems to be a new section in there.
What prompted this section was under COVID, there were times that and there's very few positions that would be able to do this. But during quarantine we had one whole department a couple different times that was quarantined, that was eligible to work from home. And this would actually create a policy that allows that, where our current handbook does not allow that.
And I think it's great to have that option, that capability. Personally, I think working remotely should be, kept to the minimum as a last resort. There were a couple of questions I had in there, like, it says that the mayor can approve up to 10 consecutive days of remote work, and then the board of works has to approve after that. And then there's another section that says that the department head can approve 2 days of emergency remote work, and the mayor and the board of works staff to approve from that point on. So help me here. The mayor can approve 10 consecutive days, and not that this would happen, but then they skip a day and the mayor could approve 10 more days.
I think in a situation like that, we would probably refer to legal counsel to make sure that we were okay with that or not. And Josh, I don't know what your opinion is, and I think it would depend on the situation and so forth. If it was because of like a quarantine or something, I don't know how the mayor feels. I don't want to speak out of place. I think it would depend on the situation that created that. And we would more than likely, I think, refer to the...
And on the second part of the issue, the department head could actually approve 2 days of remote work per week according to the policy, and never really have to get approval from the mayor or the board of works. I mean, not that would happen. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Is there any way, I guess, to clean that up to where there are more limits? It's open-ended.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, this language comes from our HR consultant. His name is
Kent Irwin.
And I'm not trying to fuss, I'm not trying to nitpick, and I think it's great to have this capability. Again, I want to make sure that.
Well, and I think the definition of emergency is what we would have to look at on that 2 days, because it does say an employee emergency. So I think that's where we would need to define what emergency would constitute that would give the department head that clearance. Is that, am I answering the question
Yes.
on where I see? Yeah.
And I would say typically, department heads usually will call me. Something like this would come up.
Typically, and Terry, I'm not talking about anybody
Yes.
who's even in these positions right now.
Yes.
But, you have a personnel handbook that who knows how long it's been since it's been revised.
2009.
Yeah, so, we could have new mayor, new department heads, and I'm I just want to make sure that we,
And this did come up during this COVID, about people going home and working remotely
and I understand the need to have it in here after COVID. Who saw that coming in
saw it?
2009?
And Chuck's, the questions Chuck's asking, this is one of the policies that was put in late. And so like, I think you have very good logic there is who determines emergency. And we had as a group in looking at this collectively and looking at it again and again, we had tried to keep any of the ambiguity that was there. But like you had mentioned to me when you're on the other side of that and doing depositions, and
Exactly.
who determined the emergency or yes, so I think it's a very good point.
I've got a question. Jess, I think you've done a great job. Everybody's done the work with this. I have a question on page 3
Okay.
on authorized alien status and citizenship. Just get down to the second sentence where it says new employees shall complete a Form 1-9 and show proof of identity and employment eligibility within the first 3 days of employment. Why would that not be done before employment? That way we're
We
not here?
actually do that, but that's how federal law is worded, that we have 3 days from the beginning of employment, so we actually require it with all of their paperwork prior to the start of their employment. However, we have to put federal language in here, and federal language says by law, we have to allow them up to 3 days after they start employment.
Enough said, thank you.
And that also goes with the E-Verify. Those I-9s are used for the E-Verify, and we have timelines by federal government on that.
These are good questions. What other questions do you have? It'd be council's pleasure to go forward and then pass this on the first reading, or look to possibly then to amend the verbiage.
I have no problem. I guess more comment than anything. I think Chuck and I talked about this, and Chuck had made a good point before, was this handbook, I don't want to say working document, it's not the right word, but I think it would be subject to an annual review situation to where as these cases come up, and maybe something's written or some language changes, God forbid we had some sort of emergency disaster next year that came in a form of a different crisis. But I think it's a living document, if you will, that we can continue to kind of work towards. And I have no problem making a motion on first reading. I think as we continue to have these conversations and talk, we've got some stuff out here, and it takes a little bit of this legal process to go through. So yeah, I have no problem making a motion to pass on first reading.
My view is just like at the school, we had to every year tweak the handbook. And we had to tweak we tweaked the personnel handbook I'm a union rep, and we do that, we're already discussing that, and we do it every year. And I think that I'm fine passing this like Christian said, but with the promise that in April of next year, we look at it and say what worked well, what didn't work well, what do we need to tweak, and that's because something's gonna come up. That's what it is.
Exactly. And
You don't want to
else,
know
it-
the list of problems we had from the other one and when they came up, yes.
It forces us to look at it, and Rick, I'm right there with you, I don't enjoy doing that, but I think it's a good exercise.
There's nothing to say that we can't amend this if something does present itself, before April 2022. So I think we're in a good position.
Yeah.
And I guess along those lines, Rick, you and I come from the same background in the school district, and evaluations were always a big part of what's done in the school districts. And I know that, municipalities, not necessarily the same, but in the handbook, it states in section 2.15 that the mayor's office may evaluate each department head on an annual basis. And at some point, I think we should consider changing that may to will. I think it would be good. I'm not trying to speak for you guys, but I think it's good for the mayor to sit down, you know, in a formal evaluation with his department heads, his or her department heads every year. And I'd even like to think somewhere down the road, and I'm not suggesting we bite this off now, because we have plenty of things to do this year, but I think it would be good down the road if we had an evaluation system where everybody was evaluated somehow every year.
And I don't disagree with that. I think there's been some of that being done now within the departments by the department heads. But I do totally agree with that.
But, and again, I know the things we've got on the plate now, I'm not saying we would consider that, but if we're gonna make this an annual, exercise, we've got to think about how that looks down the road.
I like the verbiage Christian, a living document, because it's constantly moving, you can change it whenever you want to, and we're dealing with high folks, so I like that verbiage. So we have a motion presented by Chuck Rhodes and seconded by Rick Vance. Other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Unanimous. Thank you very much. And we'll revisit this in the next meeting with a possible, just if you can talk to.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you guys to find out what verbiage you're wanting in there, and then we'll get with the attorneys and get it added and get it out to you guys for review again. And then if there is a change, we will in the next, have to do it by amendment, so.
And just there might have been, I know Chuck had brought up just a few other little places where the verbiage was things that probably we did overlook in looking at it. I might get those from him also when you're
Yeah,
talking to him.
and I would love to sit down with any of you that have anything like that and go over it so that we have it all.
Thanks, kids.
The next thing on our agenda is first reading for ordinance 2021-6, in order to adopt a revised substance abuse policy for the city of Scottsburg. We had a chance to look over this. We'll accept a motion to go forward in adopting on the first reading ordinance 2021-6.
That's well written. I'll make the motion.
Chuck Rose makes a motion. Second, please. I'll second. Okay, Bill Hogan seconds for this 2021-6. Any questions, comments, concerns about this ordinance? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Unanimous. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Next thing we have is first reading of ordinance 2021-7, ordinance to establish a policy for electronic fund transfers and online banking for the city of Scottsburg.
Let me explain.
Yes, please, I'm going to clerk treasurer explain this one, please.
Okay. To council, this is something that the clerk treasurer's office has been doing for some time now. In a recent training we had from State Board of Accounts, they just said we needed an ordinance that would establish that and that we would have an ordinance saying that it was okay to do that.
So this ordinance is just allowing you to do what you're
What we're
currently
currently
doing.
doing, yes, Rick, that's correct, yeah. And just like intertransmittals, as you see there from the general electric, water, wastewater, broadband, we, sometimes things get put in the wrong account or, so we transfer those internally. Also, when we allow payment that way, it's a state agency that, for the, electronic, so, yes.
So we'll accept a motion on the first reading for ordinance 2021-7.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Jones makes a motion. Is there a second, please?
No, second.
Chris Albertson seconds. Any questions, comments, concerns further? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Unanimous.
Mayor, there's citizens, I know there's a fee associated with online transactions.
Yes.
And it might be all base here, it might not be the right time to talk about it. Has there ever been like, have we quoted different people out about, you know, what those fees assessed are? Because I know like you're talking about EFTs and ACH transfers. Is it just kind of, you know, stationary where who we use is what it is? Or is that kind of like an annual process?
That was done, we haven't revisited that.
Yeah.
Several years ago, when I was still over the utility part, we did look in and check with what other people were
Yeah.
doing. We had looked at taking credit cards and just, and the fee is associated because the agency that we use, they guarantee that money at the time. And the fee is, we don't have any of their numbers here, no card numbers, so it all goes through that agency.
And I
But
think,
they guarantee it, and then it's in our account the next day.
yeah.
So, yes,
I know that's pretty customary with every municipality, but I was just kind of curious as, you know, we could revisit that or what agency we use, if they charge a lower fee, I didn't know if we looked at
that
that.
hasn't been done in some time because we've been happy with the one we had.
Gotcha, yep,
But that would be something that,
for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for good questions. The next thing on our agenda is ratify the mayor's board appointments.
Excuse me, before we move on, is there any reason we can't have all three readings of ordinance 2021-7?
Yeah, sure, that'd be fine.
I mean, I don't see
No
any reason to
problem.
drag that out. I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules and have second, third reading by title only.
Chuck Rose makes a motion to suspend the rules and go forward. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Commissioner Evans seconds. Questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Thanks.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Anything else before we go to the ratification of the board appointments? And then I would ask you to look at the board appointments and accept a motion. Do we need a motion to ratify these?
That's the historical practice.
Okay. We'll accept a motion to ratify the mayor's board appointments. We have Rick Zollman on school board, going to redevelopment. On the water board is Paula Murray. On the Scottsburg Parks and Recreation Board is Nina Wells. The historical board is Paul Bonet. Is there a motion to accept these as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Rick makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chuck seconds. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you very much. Now discussion on the contractor registration. If you notice, area plan Ashley Campbell, I believe, has sent everybody a packet. Ms. Ashley, do you want to address anything on this first?
I posted the information to the council's drive today and sent the email out, so after everyone's had the opportunity to review how surrounding counties charge a fee for this process, I'm happy to answer whatever questions that you may have of me from a planning commission standpoint. And I know Jeff Brody, our acting building inspector, is with us this evening too, and can probably provide some insight as to what he sees out in the field and his experience that he has with contractors, since he works much more closely with them than I do in most cases.
And to that effect, Jeff, would you like to make any comments about some of the contractors you've seen, or I shouldn't say contractor, not naming anybody, but some of the work that you've seen that you have both passed and failed?
Well, there's definitely several breeds of contractors out there. I mean, if you've got one that's got all the proof of insurance and you know, everything taxes, that take care of their employees. It's a lot different than one of these guys out here that's not got insurance, and then it falls back on the homeowner. It's just, yeah, it definitely needs to be addressed on getting it set up and getting them where they're registered or something.
And that's been, I think, one of the big things that I think all of us have a concern on, is that the contractors do have a liability insurance, and we're going to see the minimum of $1 million. Also, we're workers' comp, so that nothing falls back on that homeowner. So, if you go through this, you can see on our contract registration documents that there's been a full scope registration required in 3 of the 6 communities. All full scope communities require an applicant to carry insurance. Fees range from $15 to $100 depending on category. By ordinance board, Jarrettsville offers the homeowners to sign an affidavit. Thank you. In order to do their own work. And allow the last one is allow no fee or a minimum fee of $25 to register blank annually to renew, offset by amending the current fee schedules of the Scottsburg Advisory Planning Commission and Scottsburg Board Commission. We brought this to you before. That's in this draft ordinance 2020. And because it wasn't passed, there is still, I feel, culpability for our residents here. So we bring it to you again to have your input. We've also listed in here, I think Ms. Ashley also gave everyone, if you've had a chance to go through this, what Madison has, what Salem has, what Jeffersonville has. You're going to see what Scottsburg, what was proposed to you, the Scottsburg application for contracts registration renewal. And they would have to show their insurance, that would be verifying. They would fill out also the personal information. Then they would also receive basically a permit or certificate of registration. The fees are all in there as well. Do you have any questions on the fees?
I have a bunch of comments to make, but I'll start. In the ordinance that we did not pass, the fee was proposed at $75, I believe.
Right?
I know we have had discussions since then that has lowered that to $50.
Right?
Before I go further, what is the, I guess I'll ask this question of every policy that government that enacts. What's the purpose of this? Is this to stop the fly-by-night guys and gals that come to our city and do not up to par work? I guess, is that what I'm hearing? Is that the consensus?
Well, I think it's some of it. I think, some of it we want to verify that the folks that are doing the work know what they're doing. We've had one contractor come in here that the folks did not get a building permit. And yet when it came time, they were notified they had to get a building permit. The building inspector went out and condemned the whole thing. Everything had to be taken down. And litigation ensued after that. So had we had these things in place, that may have not happened.
I deal with this every day. I mean, I know it's kind of funny. There's a different breed of contractor. Trust me, I know. I guess my first question is that point. If we put this policy in place, and I want to be very clear, we need to have a requirement. We need to check license. We need to make sure that people doing work in our city are licensed. The problem that I have is I'm not naive enough to think that $75, $50, $10, that contractor's not paying that. If your HVAC goes out, you're paying that. I mean, it's just going to be passed along, whether that's a builder, electrician, a plumber, whoever that is. So, you know, I think, Terry, you and I agree on a lot of fronts as far as not raising taxes on our citizens. I feel like this is a tax in sheep's clothing of some sort, where, yes, you know, we are requiring that they go through the process, which I adamantly agree with, but I don't understand the fee, and I guess I'll hit on that with my next point, is everyone throws around the word crisis, right? We have a crisis here, we have a crisis here, we have a crisis there. And one of the things that Scottsburg has a crisis of that I don't hear enough is owner-occupied housing. This is a crisis, I think, that we, as a council, need to address. And this is all census data. This is not just me pulling this data. The census data states that of owner-occupied housing, so people who are living in their houses, either own it or rent it, Charlestown, 65%. Seymour, 60%. Jeffersonville, 67%. Sellersburg, 82%. City of Scottsburg, 48%. So 48% of the people who live here rent, typically on a 1-year lease, not 30-year mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. This is not me bashing rentals by any stretch of the imagination, trust me. But I want people to raise a family here. I want people to grow here. I want people to live here. I guess my concern, $50 is $50, $75 is $75. You buy that at Longhorn. I mean, I understand. But when a 2x4 is $8, or 2x4 8 foot, do we really have to charge a fee? I mean, in my mind, if we have a builder, which I represent over 60 builders for my day job, and they decide, all right, I build in New Albany, I build in Jeffersonville, I want to come to Scottsburg. And they come, they talk, they all talk to each other. I know everyone knows this. They come back and say, you know what? I went to Scottsburg, I built this house, and they were super easy to work with. They didn't even charge me for a license. They're gonna come back and say, I'm gonna go back and build a subdivision. That's the precedent I want to set. Now, if this money is going to something that I don't know about, that we actually need the funds, then I would like to know. But I think if we set the precedent today, while we do not have this in place currently, because all of these municipalities that we talked about, they'll tell you, that fee, once it's implemented, it doesn't go down. It'll go up 50, 60, 70, 100. I think we're at a stage right now where I joked with Josh earlier. You can build a 6x6 shed and call it a house and probably sell it for $150,000 in about a week. We're in such a seller's market right now that people who want to come and build in Scottsburg, I think we open our arms to them. Now, again, adamantly clear, we need a process. We need to check their insurance. We need to make sure they're licensed here. We need to cross all our T's and dot our I's. I just say, listen, if you're willing to do what it takes to come in here and tell us what you're doing and show that liability insurance, here's your license, and go make the community better.
Well, and we have talked about this. And, you know, I don't know that a 1-year fee of $25 is going to impact somebody's building a subdivision. I mean, I just don't know that that's $1. If they're building 25 houses, you're talking about $1.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with not charging a fee. But there has to be a consequence. I know I have a good friend that hired a contractor, built a house, left them hanging.
Yep.
Left them hanging. Been fooling with this thing for almost 3 years. This guy took off. How many times? I know my dad once hired a guy to do concrete. Had no idea. Told him he knew how to do aggregate concrete. That guy didn't know how to do aggregate concrete. So I don't have any problem with it, but if we're not going to charge them, then there has to be a penalty.
Absolutely.
There has to be a stiff penalty.
Absolutely.
To say, if you're going to come into our town and you're going to work and you do a shoddy job and you don't register and somebody turns it, we're going to charge you a big fine, whether it's $250, whether it's $1,000, because at least it'll make them get the registration. Because really the goal is to get the registration. It's not really the fee. I don't see $25 making a difference for the city. But there has to be a penalty. You know, it's just like my students, you know, in school. You know, they're all good when I'm watching them. But they know there's a penalty if they're not.
Well, and I think, and this is something I brought up before, I agree. Sellersburg, when they have someone who's not licensed in the city, they take the building permit cost, if they come in and get a building permit, there it is, and they double it. So if you're not licensed, what you're paying for a building permit is now 2 times what it would be if you were licensed. Which that would hurt. I mean, that would definitely hurt. So I agree. I mean, I don't know necessarily what that, you know, penalty would be. I think there's a couple different thoughts. But I also, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't make this comment. I think that we have to kind of define what government's job is too. And again, there's many contractors that do all kinds of various jobs, good, bad, and indifferent. But I think at certain points, you know, if someone sees a sign on I-65 that say I build homes, 1-800, you know, and they call that number and they let them come out to the house, is that our job to intervene? Now, I think that we got to protect our citizens to a degree, but I think the city of Scottsburg citizens are smart enough to do their homework a little bit. So I don't know, kind of going back to the food trucks, when we had this whole conversation, you know, we had the $500 fines for the food trucks to come in here, and then we had all this disagreement, and then we just finally realized that the city wasn't liable if something were to happen. Not to say that this is the equivalent, but I think we have to define government's job, and I believe that our residents, you know.
Well, I think there are old elderly people that hire people every year in this town that get taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And that is our job.
But I think
that's the role of government, to protect our folks, our citizens. And I'm not disagreeing with you, but if we're going, this is a big philosophical question. And I think what it boils down to, we want reputable contractors. I agree with you 100%. We need to have new homes. We want home ownership. Lord have mercy. I'm a school teacher. My daughter's a school teacher. I want families here, you know. But we want people that are going to do the job and do it right. And I don't think that, you know, we could just say, I mean, when it boils down to it, any kind of requirement that you have, where's it going to come if it's not from government?
Well, and I guess my point with that is saying, if a shoddy contractor comes in and does take advantage of a situation, do you think in the process of them ripping off one of our elderly folks, they say, okay, I gotta go to City Hall to get my license? I think they're gonna do it regardless. I mean, not that it's right.
Maybe they will, but in the court proceedings, that will follow. The lawyer will say, did you get your city license? Did you file? Did you abide by all the city ordinances? And that this contract, that just shows more guilt in a proceeding. That, to me, that's an extra layer. If we had nothing, if I'm the lawyer of the contractor that took advantage of them, well, there are no license fees. There are no, this town doesn't require those things. So then, as a contractor, you're saying, I did what I told her I did. I just think that it's a way to protect our folks without, I'm like you, I agree. If it's a free license, and I don't have any problem with a free license, but whether it's like Sellersburg, they charge double the building permit, or there's a fine, or something, a reputable contractor, they're going to say it's a free license. It's not going to stop anybody.
Well, that's my point. I think this ordinance, if it were to come to fruition, would impact the reputable contractor, because they will do the work. They will go follow the building permit process. They will go through every step and do what's right. I just don't want to set the precedent. And I agree with every word you're saying, Rick. I think the only thing is, I hope it comes to fruition. I hope that these shoddy contractors are, scared off by this, and it does alleviate some of those problems. I just don't want to make a policy or enact an ordinance that will only impact the men and women who do things right. And again, I adamantly agree. We need a license program. We need to make sure who's doing work here help. And I think the other side of that too is, in order for them to do that, I think we need to have these licensed roles where an elderly man or woman couldn't, they don't know who to call, who to contact. They call the city of Scottsburg, and the city of Scottsburg says, hey, these are our licensed plumbers. These are our licensed. But I think in order to do that, I think some of those men and women who own those businesses will only come in and do that if it was free, or if they're forced to do it. So I think it's just kind of creating that environment. I talked about home ownership. I think that's a real problem, and if we're going to talk about growth in 5 years, we've got to look at who we're competing against and what these other municipalities are doing. And again, I think the original proposed $75 was significantly high. And we're talking about dollars here, like you said, for a subdivision, but it's not about the cost. It's about setting a precedent. And I think we're missing out on a market of keeping our kids here. I think a lot of the 20 to 35-year-olds are going to Charlestown, going to Louisville, going to Cincinnati, Indianapolis, because there is a market there for what they want. And I think where the cost of building, the cost of living is today, if we set a precedent with open arms to say, listen, it's not much, but we can do what we can, and we can help in that process, I think we should.
I think you and I agree. We're agreeing on that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That it's okay to have no fee,
Yeah.
but we have to figure out what's going to be it's like a carrot and a stick, you got a carrot and a stick.
For sure.
Let me say this as well, because I've had probably at least 3 citizens, because we have a free system right now. You're not paying anything. So, and these folks were taken advantage of. To one couple was over $3,500 and paid up front and did not get the call, and the folks just left. So I think that there is a responsibility of this board to go forward and put something in place, and so we can go forward. Because I want to tell you right now, as you all know, my whole economic development is not based on industry. It's not based on manufacturing. It's based on real estate. And as you know, right now, or you may not, we have 7 subdivisions right now on the docket. Now, I'm not telling you all 7 are going to take place, but we have 3 that are taking place right now. That's going forward. And we are putting residential TIF. The state of Indiana allows us to use residential TIF. We're going to the school board tomorrow night, so the school board passes this. That's over 250 homes. 250 homes. And, we're going, some of this is going to come from Scott County folks who are going to buy these homes. But we're going to have a lot of folks coming up here from Clark County, from Floyd County, because you can buy a whole lot more house here for your dollar than what you can down there. And I think it is prudent for this council to go forward with some degree to make sure the folks are going to, and we're putting, these residential TIFs are probably going to be, anywhere from $2 to $4 million that the city's putting this infrastructure into these folks. And so we want to make sure that we have great, competent people, and we've got something in place here to verify that they're coming into doing work that they have the skill set for and the knowledge of and the ability to do. And, so
I guess what we're at, Mr. Mayor, I guess, I don't know, I speak for the entire council, but from my point of view, the previous ordinance just needs to be reworked, is what I think Christian is saying. And am I correct, Christian? That we need to be open-armed to contractors, but yet have a way to hold them accountable.
Yeah,
What in here do you not, what in here, what do you bring tonight that you would like to see changed in this ordinance that's before you?
the $75 fee.
That's all?
I mean, I think mainly, yeah. I
So
mean,
you
I have to
put
go back.
this with a $50 fee?
No, I don't think we charge anything. If you put a $50 fee in front of me, I'll vote no, and that's fine if that's what everyone agrees with, because again, I think again, I continue to state this. We can go to municipality to municipality, and I can tell you the problems that each city has. City of New Albany charges the most for many different reasons. I mean, the city of New Albany has a vinyl siding ban right now.
Chain link fence.
And chain link fence, I mean, they're all down the line, and there's a significant drop in development. And I'll go even further to say, I said Jeffersonville, I think the last time we had this ordinance. Jeffersonville, the last 10 years, according to census data, has grown 430% in housing. So my point with that being, and I've said it before, the cost of new home construction, and the data's out there, 25% of a new house, when you build a house, is tied up in government regulations. So before you put a stud in, or you pour the foundation, 25% of your loan cost is going to the government, one way or another. So if we can do our job as a government, just to lessen that burden, I think we're in a good perspective.
So I think if we did something along the lines, Mr. Mayor, of free licensure and a double,
If you look at your fourth bullet point, allow no fee or a minimum of 25 or 50, whatever the council you guys.
but there's got to be a thing if they don't get licensed. So there's got to be that's what I'm saying, is that if we just have no fee and if there's no not punishment, but there's no consequence or penalty for not licensing, why license?
Well, I think it would be a consequence if
May I make a suggestion that might help to facilitate this process or balance it out, because it feels very imbalanced? So we can move forward with updating the existing ordinance to fit the criteria that council's looking for at no fee required for contractors to register. To the council drive today, I uploaded a document the mayor and I were talking about earlier. It's a homeowner affidavit. I got it out.
Affidavit?
So affidavit, tomato. I'm just homeowner, So that could be signed by the property owner if they wanted to hire a contractor that did not want to register with the city, if they wanted to do the work themselves, and that would, in essence, remove the liability from the city.
Yeah.
So once the homeowner signs that, we're hands off of it, and they're free to move forward as they please. In addition to the ordinance for the contractor registration, this document the homeowner can sign to essentially opt out of any type of registration. I would be happy to begin compiling together some data so that we can revise the existing building commission fee schedule. And on this fee schedule, we can add things like what Councilman Mann was referring to, penalties for if Jeff has to come out and inspect 7 different times for someone to correct the same thing. Jumpstart fines, which is something that we see a lot in the city, starting the work prior to getting the proper permits or registering with the city. And also, the mayor and I discussed briefly today, and with Jeff, there are things that we don't currently offer a building permit for, such as just an exclusive HVAC permit or an exclusive plumbing permit that some surrounding communities do offer through their building commission. So if you're just having a small job done in your home, not an overhaul or complete remodel, you can then pull those permits, and then we can cross-reference it with the contractor registration, or if it's a plumber, look on the state website. So I think those are maybe 3 important pieces that could make one really nice package, so that people want to come to Scottsburg and develop here.
I think it's Ashley's point. I think Ashley's done a great job, Jeff's done a great job. I think we're really kind of getting to the core of what's going on, and I think, to cut through all the nuts and bolts, I'm gonna blame the state of Indiana. I mean, there's no state requirement for builders. I mean, there's a sign on I-65 not too long ago that said you have to have a license to cut hair, but you don't have to have a license to build a house. That's true. I mean, that's a problem. So now it's left to the local government And, you know, and we can talk about that all day long, but that is a huge issue. I think, you know, Ashley and I talked about redoing some of the zoning ordinance stuff, some of the potential UDO, and I think we're on the right track. But I just go back and when I lay my head down at night, I see that 48% number, you know, and that's a problem. Because I think a lot of kids my age go to college and don't come back here. And if there's anything that we can do, and those rental numbers are so high too, not to be naive, because simply put, because of the down payment. You know, you only have to pay 1 month's rent, you know, as a down payment there, as opposed to 10%, which is more than likely $28,000. You know, give student loans and car payments and this, that, and the other, can't afford the down payment like maybe you used to. I just, again, the ordinance, I don't have a real problem with, I have no problem making sure that there's a license requirement. I just think if we as a council and as a local government just decided to say, hey, we're here with open arms, we want to welcome everybody, but we want to welcome in the right way and do things right. I'm all for it.
I can see the argument, not the arguments, I can see the discussion on both sides. I don't think a $75 or $100 or a $50 permit is going to make any kind of justification whether the person is going to build a quality home or do a quality remodel. I built 2 houses in my life, first and last, never again. It's not based on the quality work of the contractor, it was the pain in the backside of getting it done. And it was the same thing when I remodeled the first house I had. Barbara said, oh, if we do this, I'll never say anything to you about building a house. That lasted 2 years. And like I said, I built 2 houses. I think a lot of it has to come back on the person that's going to have the work done, to do some research on the builder themselves. When we were looking at different properties, we asked who the contractor was that built this house. And when they said who it was, I thought, holy moly, no way. You know, and well known for things not being of quality. There was no fines, he didn't lose any property, he wasn't charged $10,000. Well, it's the way it is. So they have to do a little bit of homework themselves. They can't rely upon the city, the government, to check out the quality of the work that's going to be done. So therefore, I can see both sides.
So let me ask you this, then. Would council be open to put forth this ordinance 2020-8?
That one die, Josh, the one that we have to read.
Yeah, we'll need to read, I'd like to read number.
That's what I would be thinking.
Everything from the discussion I'm hearing, I can put a draft together and circulate.
I say it's either
Simplify.
if you go to page 4 on section 18-208, to say basically there is no annual fee for contractor registration, but the city does require an annual renewal.
Yeah.
So
And I think even in the ordinance, we define what that penalty is.
now that's right. Let's go to Rick's point about that penalty. So how do you want that?
And I think I'm open to whether it's double the permit fee or building permit fee. Is that what you said, Jefferson? Or is it a flat fee? I don't care.
I think there's
I just think there needs to be a penalty.
I'll look at Ashley and Jeff. I think it probably a flat fee is better because a contractor, a builder is only going to be the permit fee, right? An electrician is not going to be affected by the permit fee. With builders, I think maybe we do jack it up to 25 cents a square foot in the building side, but electricians, plumbers, HVAC, maybe it is a flat fee. Or we can just do flat fee all the way across. I think that's fine too.
I'm open as long as there's some way to hold them accountable if they come in bad faith.
Yeah.
I just.
Would you like if I, go ahead.
I hear you talking about building a whole house. My concern is electric. If you ever plug an even to somebody that says they're an electrician, that thing blow back on you, you have a lot more respect for this licensing process. And as far as fees, somebody's got to administrate this thing. That costs the city either way, it's gonna cost money, whether it be taxation or to fees. I think prefer a fee that was directly related. However, back to the licensing requirement, the idea being that right now, you do not have to have a license. And trust me, I get more questions that if a licensed electrician, which I think should be required, or the homeowner themselves, that how do we do this, how do we do that? And that takes up a lot of my time, and again, that costs the city money. However you look at it, it costs the city money. When I lay down Board of Works today, that's stuff I'm working on, 20 different items. There'll be 22 tomorrow, 24, it just keeps coming. Fortunately, I got qualified people that help out in the respect to all these electricians, so to speak. And Jeff can attest that, you show up sometimes, they got a water pipe for electric grade. And so my concern with this, what you're doing, you're saying, we're trying to put something that says, work in Scottsburg shall be called in. Chief amongst my concerns, is that person a licensed electrician? And it's getting better. The permitting process has helped a lot. But to me, if you're going to put an ordinance and have quality homes built, that if one, somebody's got to maintain it, we got to pay for that one way or the other. And two, there needs to be specifications of what qualifies you as an electrician. Pass the state board, state licensing, that's an electrician. If you just say, I'm an electrician because I went down and paid my $50 to get a permit to work in Scottsburg. Sorry, I'm dealing with that every day, and that's just not.
No, Jim, I don't know enough. I know electric, you said, there's a state license, correct? You have to, is there like a continuing education that maintains your state license? How does that work exactly?
I'll say I don't know in that respect, but I do know a lot of people here do not have the license.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not limited to electric work, plumbing work,
Yeah.
I think you
HVAC.
have to have plumbing licenses.
I think the state does require plumbing.
I don't think there's a state.
But do you have to have, in our situation, will they have to have, if they want to do plumbing work, will they have to supply you a copy of a plumber license?
Yes.
That was the original.
All right, and so HVAC, is there a license for that? Do they have to?
I think specific types of HVAC work, there is a license. The plumbers, though, you can go online and look and see if they're registered in the state, so they wouldn't necessarily have to submit something to you, because we would check that, so.
So I would say in the ordinance, I would say in the ordinance, if it's a state qualified license or some sort, we make sure that is checked alongside of liability insurance. Because the builders, the home builders, the problem is, like I said, there's not a state accepted, all right, here's your, your process. I don't know enough about, from the electrician side or the plumbing side or the HVAC side, what the state permitting process is, but I think anything that we can check, when we do it, we need to do that.
I agree. I had a family of mine in my office today. They were hurt because they had somebody electrically had a waterproof connection box underneath their mobile home. The waterproof, but it's full water. So that's what we're talking about. That's where I think this board, this council needs to say, okay, we want to protect you. We want to make sure that we're going to have qualified people doing these things.
But, okay, in that instance today, Terry, my understanding is this is only valid if they're a contractor. If there's a contractor, a contract between the person doing the work and the person paying for the work. So there's a big loophole right there. I mean, I've had work done that didn't require a building permit. And, I know people who have had work done that didn't require a building permit. Wasn't done by a licensed contractor. Just hired someone, I can build you that. And they won't build it, and it may or may not meet the expectation. So, I mean, and the same thing with plumbers. I know we talk about vetting the person doing the work for contractor, but go find a plumber to do some work right now. You can't find one. So you find somebody who you got a water line busted or a drain line leaking. So old Bubba says, well, I don't know how to fix that, but maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. So I mean, we're not throwing a blanket of protection over anybody trying to get any kind of work done.
there'll be people that'll slip through the cracks. That's just the way it's gonna be. But at least there's a process in place.
Exactly, but I'm saying we established early on that there's a difference between a contractor and a handyman.
Right.
Okay, and there's a lot of work being done by handyman that aren't so handy. Okay, and there's no way to protect the homeowner against them. Okay.
Is council okay with the verbiage that's in the current document, except for the fees and the fines? So are you all okay with that?
I'd have to go back and, I mean, it's been,
Basically, yes. I like Josh's suggestion about, let him pre-work it, get a draft out. I personally find the flat fees right now, I think, let's get it going and see what it looks like. And we get down the weeds on the penalties pretty quickly, I think.
So can we bring this back then to council at next meeting, Ashley, with this same verbiage coming in with city? The no fee on one and the flat fees on some of these others?
Yeah.
Then you can look at this and then amend it however you want to.
Or at least discuss it.
At least discuss it.
Yeah, let's not make amendments on it so that, you change the document and it changes the original wording, so.
All I'm talking about is basically changing those fees.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
The
okay.
fees.
I
That's all I'm talking about,
okay.
because I think that's been the big holdup here. When I'm hearing Christian and Rick both say, we want this, but there's been discussion, I don't really want to see it all, So let's go what council wants, but let's get something in place.
I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to overcomplicate things because we were here at this point. I'm mainly speaking, and kind of what Jim brought up, I'm mainly speaking for home builders. Electricians, plumbers, HVAC, they're subcontracting work in the sense of some others. So home builders, they have a variety. They can just jump ship and go from municipality to municipality, whichever is the easiest to work in. Electricians and plumbers, it's a little bit harder. So when I talk about the fee associated, the reason I don't want a fee is mainly, no offense against electricians or anybody, but it's mainly for home builders so that it does put us at an advantage over a Charlestown or someone else, And again, I would be okay if there's no fee all the way around for electricians, HVAC, builders, etc. But I just think that was where my mind was going with it.
But to that effect, Jim was out there and basically failed a bunch of them.
Yeah.
We got notified, they had no disconnects on their meter bases. There's only 2 or 3 panels in the whole apartment complex, the whole apartments that's been moved. I mean, we need these things in place.
Absolutely.
And to protect our people.
And
There's no permanent heating.
Absolutely.
And I agree 100%, and there needs to be a penalty.
Yeah.
And that's because if there's no fee or a small fee, I don't think it's gonna kill an electrician to pay $25, but whatever. If he does a poor job and he doesn't register, then he needs to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
It's just like if I'm driving 75 miles down the road at 55, Chief Zellers needs to hold me accountable, regardless of whether I'm on city council or not. Wouldn't you agree, Chief?
Yep, I would anyway.
I know you would.
Ms. Kimball, do you need any more guidance from this council?
No, I think I understand what the expectation is, and I will work with legal counsel to determine what that needs to look like.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to you next time. Okay, everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay, good, Chris? Okay, good deal, okay. Thank you for a good discussion. On that, let's go to tomorrow. We want to invite, if you can make this tomorrow, this is a stellar day for the city of Scottsburg. This is the wastewater, Scottsburg's new and improved wastewater treatment plant. I'm like a kid at Christmas in this thing. And for wastewater treatment plant, it is going to be probably the biggest asset we have in the city of Scottsburg is the amount of money. This is $13 million in taxpayer money. And, so the groundbreaking is tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you can come there, we're going to give you a hat, we're going to give you a shovel. We want you to put your shovel on the ground. There's already got your bulldozer behind you, because we started 2 weeks ago. But I want this to be a great event for our citizens. And if you don't know where it's at, go down to 3rd Street North, go all the way as far as you can, and you ran right into it. So, but please, if you guys can make it, if you can't get away, I hope you can. So, but I understand if you can't, but if you can. 11 a.m. tomorrow out there. COVID-19 continue to go down. We had a few blips last week with 22 new infections. This week we're down to 15. I think that was just due to the spring break. I think it's still a residual spring break. So, what else do we have? Mr. President?
I have nothing. I think we
Okay.
covered everything I had.
Okay, good meeting, good discussion. Thank you so very much. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
Trevor makes a motion, we're adjourned. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.